Yo, everybody, happy Friday night. It is August 19th, 2022. I am your host, one of your co hosts, Mike Barrera. And to my side is Dave Miller. See, I didn't get the direction wrong. I didn't say left or right. I
Yeah,
just said to the side. Made it easy for us
yeah,
to remember. As you can see, I'm outside because my kid is still wide awake for some goddamn reason. And Dave, you're out. You just came back from holiday. How
yeah,
was
yeah.
your vacation? Your trip away?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, just generic holiday, go away, enjoy the sun, sunbathe. Yeah, it's alright. It was good to get away. Now back here, back in the action, and hopefully, we're looking forward to a Union win tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been weird because we recorded last week, I believe, and it just seems like that's such a long time ago. We already had two matches since our last show, so it's a lot to discuss. But yeah, it's been nice to have you back to finally talk about the Union, who, as this title of the show is kind of called, a bump in the road. They've hit a small bump in the road over these past couple games. I know they just beat Chicago 4-1, but they did lose to Cincinnati in a not so great fashion, and they come after the Chicago win, and then kind of lay an egg against FC Dallas. So a
Yeah,
lot to discuss. But before we discuss, we want to discuss our new sponsors, Dave. We have a whole new list of sponsors. It's pretty cool, exciting stuff. So let me read these off for you real quick, and then we can get back to the fun stuff here.
yeah.
So first and foremost, this is for Eagles fans especially. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for a chance to win a signed Brian Dawkins poster. So that's the first thing. Next thing, we have a live post-game show at the Sports and Social in Allentown, PA, this Sunday at 8 on August 21st, 8:21 at 4 p.m. after the Eagles-Browns preseason game, and a special guest, Hollis Thomas, former Eagle great Hollis Thomas will be there. So that's a pretty cool little guest there. You know, he's all over WIP and all those channels there. So it's cool that they got him to come support the cause. Next up, we have an old friend of ours, Statement Games. Check out Statement Games at statementgames.com for a fun new way to fantasy sports and entertainment. You can win gift cards and prizes. It's free to sign up at statementgames.com. Next up, we have Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant in Allentown. They serve up Italian cuisine, including pizza, pasta, burgers, sandwiches, and more. Available for pickup or delivery. Order today at vinnyspizzapa.com. And now, Dave, another new one. Let's bring another one on board here. We have Stuffedthegrills at 6750 Iroquois Trail, number 5 in Allentown, PA. They are stuffedthegrills.com. You can check out their funky Cubano, sweet chili shrimp po' boy, and house-made meatloaf. Sounds pretty good. And also address-wise, I believe they're right next to Vinny, so very easy to get to both if you want to. And of course, last but not least, we have our line of work here. We have the Across the Pitch shop at aatsportsnetwork.com/shop. Check that out for all the gear, all the fun stuff. Besides that, Dave, you know, what can you say about the last two games, the Chicago match and the FC Dallas match?
I think they're probably two games that perfectly encapsulates what the MLS really is. It's a league where anything can happen on any given game, match day or game day. Uh, Again, obviously, I actually wasn't able to watch last weekend's game because I essentially was up at midnight in US time and didn't get back till I left at 5 a.m. UK. I was up at 5 a.m. UK time, got back at 11 p.m. So I was knackered by the time I
Ooh.
got back. So didn't watch the game, but obviously seeing the highlights, it was the perfect performance. Really, I think clinical when it had to be.
Yep.
Uh, they got cut open a few times. A bit edgy at the back at times. Left open a couple of chances, which perhaps you wouldn't really want there to be. I mean, the goal, obviously, Jack Elliott sort of rushed to clearance when perhaps had he given it another second to get it either on his right foot or to compose himself a bit more. Probably don't concede the goal. I mean, the Chicago game seemed a very strong performance and good team goals. The Gaston goal was good. Good composure for Julian Carranza goal. I mean, that was a solid performance. And the Dallas game, I mean, yeah, it's always going to be a tough game on the road. I mean, Union notoriously have a very poor record against Dallas. I think I was made aware. I think
They haven't won a single time. They've drawn once. They've not won once in
yeah,
Dallas. Yep.
I think
Go ahead.
Joe Tanzi put the stats up for the game ahead of the game.
I think so. Yeah, I think he
Yeah,
did.
I think they'd scored like last time they'd scored like 2016 or something like that, and it was always going to be a tough game, tough fixture going into that ground. I mean, they had great chances. I was actually able to see the first 20 minutes of the game while break at
Oh,
work,
okay.
and I thought the Union started off the better of the two sides. I mean, Carranza had a couple of good chances with the free kick and the shot from the edge of the box. You thought they've started off quite well here. Then obviously
Yeah.
stopped watching and then sort of looked at the score at the end. It was 1-0. So having seen like the full highlights from 20th minute onwards, it's frustrating to have not, perhaps had, scored with one of the chances they had, because there was a couple of chances in the second half where they'd been a bit more composed, or, I think the Kai Wagner shot where he could have just drilled it at the near post on his left foot, we decided to cut inside and sort of sliced it with his right foot and had to rely on the deflection to sort of send it goalward. Perhaps if he'd used his left foot, you never know, he could have ended up beating the goalkeeper, could have made a save and a rebound or fallen somewhere. But yeah, I think it was two games that perfectly encapsulates the up and down nature of the MLS.
Yeah, it was a very much a tale of two different stories between the two matches because, as you said, they were clinical against Chicago. They were very clinical, polished, good performance from top to bottom. You get to FC Dallas, and the clinical side of things was not really all there. Before I get too far ahead of myself, put some comments out. Adam says, "What's up, guys? Hello, thanks for joining us as always," and Moyo as well. Appreciate you guys chiming in.
So,
Very fun stuff. And look, they even know each other. Adam, well, say, look, it's a camaraderie in the comments. I love it. So, a Chicago game, real quick. So, I thought the best goal that night, or at least the most exciting goal, was that first goal when Ua traps it around midfield. It was just boom, 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 goal. Right to Carranza across the pitch. Carranza does enough to get it to Daniel, who then just calmly chips it in, which was a great goal. It reminded me a lot of the DC United goal that we had scored last year. I believe that was at that game where you had Bedoya fling up the side of the pitch. Daniel basically tipped it to Sergio, and Sergio had a good counter goal on the left hand side. It was like just a 1-2-3 into the net kind of counter attack. So that's what you love to see, that chemistry between those three. And then the goals afterwards. You had Elliott paying attention on the header from Mbaizo. You had Corey Burke standing strong in that fourth goal night. And then, of course, the third goal was, oh my God, Dave, who scored the third goal? I'm drawing a blank here.
Carranza.
Carranza, yes, thank you, Carranza. Carranza scored a third goal. So it was just clinical. And then you get to the FC Dallas game. Now I know you mentioned you watched the first 20 minutes. Agree or disagree with me, Dave? In that first 20 minutes, I thought the Union were the better squad. What do
Yeah,
you think
I
of it?
agree. I
Okay.
thought they had better chances to control possession a lot more. Also, quickly to flash back on that Chicago game as well, one thing that, obviously, speaking about the Union being clinical,
Yeah.
is the fact they took advantage of the defensive mistakes that Chicago opened up for them. I mean,
Yeah.
for two of the goals, I mean, for the guys that goal and Kran's goal, they were cut open so easily with that one pass. And obviously, the Union made like good use of being able to take advantage of, being able to slice them open with some clinical passing. Then with the Elliott goal, the keeper just didn't know what to do. He for some reason, he tried to catch it, the ball hit the bar, it fell perfectly for Elliott, who did well to make sure he stayed on the side and track the header. And that was a proper striker's goal where it is a simple tap in, but you've closed up the shot, expecting the goalkeeper to make a mistake or your teammate not to score. And it's what a lot of strikers should really be doing in those sort of scenarios. So it was a good goal to see, and again that clinical nature. And again, the Corey Burke goal I thought was very good as well. The first touch that he had to open up the space around him to actually, it's why his first touch basically created the goal. If he didn't have such a good first touch, he may have struggled to have beaten Selena, but he did fantastically to, uh, you know, make sure the first touch opened up the full goal. I think Dan Higginbottom said, and he just was able to roll it perfectly into the far corner.
Yeah, Slanina got some harsh comments after his performance overall. I mean, I know that he's got a lot of talks going overseas, so it's like, well, this is the person that's so highly touted. The mistake that he
Yeah,
made on the LA goal was pretty bad. I mean, he had the ball above the post. He could have just tipped it back or just
yeah,
knocked it. He just really just dropped it. It was a terrible goal. But if you watch that goal again, Elliott just paying attention, was in the right spot at the right time, which was great. He actually almost had the same exact thing happen to him at the FC Dallas game as well. Um, but I thought between the two matches, the one thing that stood out in particular was the fact that they started out the Chicago second half a bit shaky, and they did get burned by the goal. Um, Within the first about 5 minutes or so. Same thing with FC Dallas. When you started out that second half, you almost went down 2-0 almost right away. It was
yeah,
not a good start to the second half. So that's two matches in a row where that has now been a concern. I'm hoping that it's not three against DC United because that would then be a pattern that we don't want to see. But I thought they did well to press against FC Dallas to start the match. I thought they forced turnovers. I
yeah,
thought the chances were there. And if you watch the press conference with Jack McGlynn after the game, he says like the chances were there within the first 15 minutes. We just didn't put it away. We just weren't clinical enough. And then next thing
No.
you know, Ferreira gets, I mean, one chance at goal and just buries it. But Dave, in that first 20 minutes, I'm also going to go back to you for this one. Jacob Glessens did not have a good first half. What did you think from his performance on that night within with what you saw?
I mean, to be fair, I mean, for what I saw, I don't think the Union really had much to do defensively, so I can't really judge him from what I saw. I mean, the goal, obviously, go and look back at the highlights from the goal, he did get caught a bit flat footed, and by the time that he was able to react to Ferreira going outside him, it was either stick a leg out and give away a penalty, or so I
Yep.
think he did. I mean, yeah, he should have been more prepared, should have been on his toes, ready for him to try and cut outside him or ready for the movement, but
Thanks, Jennifer.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
he got caught out quite badly, and then
Yep.
I mean, again, if he sticks out the leg, gives away the penalty, he's down there, and I think he did the thing any defender would do, which is pull the leg back, and Ferreira scored a great goal and managed to find the bottom corner, which obviously Andre couldn't really do much about.
Yeah, I mean, so if for most of the rest of the Glessens performance and Kai Wagner as well can be kind of thrown into this conversation, Glessens looked kind of off. I mean, he had one pass in particular. He was going down the center of the pitch. He thought Kai Wagner was going to be run up the left side. And he just passed it out of bounds. It
Yeah,
was very uncharacteristic in that regard. Second time in the first half, he had the ball on the right side of the field, and he could have very easily shot it back to Andre Blake just to kind of keep possession. And even Ala Bedoya was like, "What the hell are you doing?" He just kind of shot out of bounds. And then the one in particular that was really bad was in the second half. He had the ball in the box and he went to go push out to Kai, and he barely touched it. It rolled maybe 10 feet at the most, and it was, I mean, like, who are you looking at? And I'm not one to bash Jacob. I love him. I think he's a great player, but he looked all out of sorts. And then Kai had two crosses in particular were just terrible. I mean, Dave, I mean, literally almost into the other side of the stadium bad, just launched them.
yeah,
And you don't see that from Kai Wagner. You don't.
no.
Even his corners, his crosses, they weren't that accurate. They were too much spin on it. It just wasn't a good performance. I thought that they looked better when Olivier came in. I thought they looked better when Mikael came in for Corey Burke, which, by the way, may or may not have broken a rib. Just FYI. Um,
I think he's fit for tomorrow.
He's fit. So okay, good. So he dodged the ball. I know there was a press conference
Yeah,
that we missed, so apologies there, everybody. But um, they looked better once Olivier came on. They looked better once Ua came on. But my God, the defensive performance really wasn't that strong outside of maybe Elliott's a few touches here or there, and Nathan when he started, because Nathan started last night and it was, or the other night, it
no.
was, and he did fine. I thought he did okay. But any other thoughts from you on that first 20 minutes that you can kind of touch upon before we get
Uh,
to the next topic here?
I mean, not really. I think again, I think looking from the highlights, obviously Andre Blake made a couple of good saves to really keep the
Yeah.
score 1-0, 0-0 at the time. So, and again, Andre sort of never good player. Actually, I mean, obviously as well. I don't know if you were at the Chicago game. I don't know were you there or
No, I wasn't there.
obviously from the TV. Did Kasper Schmeichel get a good reception or?
So yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about that real quick. So Casper did come back against Chicago. He did get a decent reception according to JP Dellacamera. So it was nice to have him welcome back. But honestly, Dave, he was kind of invisible for most of the match.
Okay,
I put that nicely. He just didn't contribute. He almost had an assist early on with a nice header into the box that Blake stood tall for, but Casper was kind of irrelevant, and which is kind of why he's not here anymore. Let's be
yeah,
honest. He does have those stretches where he just disappears. So I thought he got the warm welcome that he deserved. He wasn't booed throughout the match or anything like that. He just was another player out there for
yeah,
Chicago.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so it was but when you come back to the FC Dallas game, a lot of fans were pretty pissed off. For one, you saw them go against Cincinnati and play pretty poorly against the Cincinnati team who just seems to know how to play against the Union. They kind of figured them out. Thankfully, Cincinnati, I believe, is below the playoff line right now. But if they do sneak into the playoffs, they would foreseeably be a second round matchup or third round matchup if they make it that far. So I would be afraid to play Cincinnati because they have played well against us so far. Um, but a lot of people are saying lack of effort. They just looked bad, sloppy, and now it's
Mm,
become a trend a couple times where you've had these just absolute dud performances when you're on the road. Um, I I don't. I mean, do you think there's some concern now for the Union that they can be a bit Jekyll
Um,
and Hyde, or do you think it just they're 100-degree weather, they're in Texas in the middle of the week, the lineup's not the same? I mean, how do you react to this kind of mediocre performance?
um, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be here and say it's a mediocre performance. Who's running on the road in the MLS?
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think to be fair, the many games, I think you probably say and say on the road, you take a point, you take a draw, and I mean, that's the thing. I mean, perhaps we're too spoilt with the Union, and we're so used to them
Yeah,
being a great team and winning. And but I think again, I don't know whether maybe we're overreacting a bit, but I think that the Union are, I think I don't know how to explain it. I think again, you're going to have those off days, especially on the
yeah,
road. I think you see the form this year. I mean, there's games where they deserve to lose and they've won. There's
yeah.
games that perhaps they've taken the point up. Games they should have lost as well. I think you're bound to lose some games sometimes. I think again, I think there's 5 games all year. I mean, again, it's frustrating because especially when you have those sort of small outside hopes of winning the Supporter Shield, I think that's now completely gone.
That's gone. Yeah, that's.
Um,
I think they're 9 points ahead of both Austin and us now. I mean, they've just been on
yeah,
a tear.
and yeah.
LAFC is by far the best team in the league.
And LAFC has a game in hand on the Union as well.
Exactly.
Again, 4 losses out of 26, and I mean all on the road as well.
Yeah.
So you can't really begrudge it too much. I think again it's one of those things. I guess when you're coming off the back of a big win, you probably expect a bit more, but it's the MLS. It's a crapshoot every single week as to what's going to happen. I mean, at the start of the year when I don't think anyone would have probably bet on Montreal being in the top 2 or 3 teams in the Eastern
No.
Conference at the start of the year either. I mean, even in Atlanta being second bottom in the Eastern Conference as well, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. So I think it's a crapshoot every week, and the Union sort of being as consistently strong as they are, staying at the top is a great sign.
Actually, Jose Nunez, our buddy Jose, did say Montreal could have been a good team this year. So I'm going to give him credit. I'm gonna shout him out. If he listens to this,
Yeah,
you're welcome, Jose. And I remember he talked to me. He said, I think Montreal could be decent from their
yeah,
performances they were watching. But no, you're right. I think you have to be somewhat cool and collected. The problem is now you're facing the bottom feeder of the league in DC United. So you can look at it two ways. You can say, "Oh, great! Now they can just beat up on a team they beat 7-0," or you can look at it as, "Oh shit, we are could lead into our trap game. God forbid we go to DC United and lose, or even
yeah,
just draw. I mean, then you're going to have the fans panicking." I agree with what you said though a few minutes ago. The supporter shield is pending some sort of like amazing run to end the year, most likely out of grasp. There's nine
yeah,
points back, a game in hand with LAFC, or the LAFC has a game in hand rather. So that's unrealistic. So what's the next goal here? The top of the Eastern Conference.
yeah,
You get that first spot, you get a week off, and you solidify that it will go through Subaru Park for the playoffs.
yeah.
But one thing in particular that I want to talk about real quick before I put in this comment, and a shout out to Laura. Thank you, appreciate it for the thoughts there. Glad. Thank you guys for watching the show. But one thing in particular that we saw a lot of commotion about on Twitter was: do you go with Leon Flock or do you go with Jack McGlynn? Jack McGlynn has taken the league by storm over these past few weeks. He's played great. He had a nice free kick. And Leon Flock has been great throughout the season. He's a stout defender, but I think McGlynn's presence is more recognizable because of what he contributes on the offensive end.
Yeah.
What do you
Um,
think, Dave? Do you think it's time for the switching of the guard, or do you think you stick with what has brought you to this point with Leon Flock?
um, I think it's a difficult one. I think because both players are obviously very good players at what they do. Personally, for me, I think that the switch could be dependent on. It's more of like a matchup sort of thing as
Yeah,
opposed to making direct change. I think if you're going into a bigger game, I mean, against a team like LAFC on the road, even at home, or a big road game, you might, you're going to struggle to like keep possession and things such as that. I think someone like Leon Fluck out there is probably going to be a better player to use because you're going to have more defensive depth and balance in the team. But I guess again, no disrespect to a DC United or I mean, look at the Union schedule coming up. No disrespect to like DC United, even like a team like Colorado, Atlanta United. Those are the sort of games that perhaps you could use or utilize
Yeah.
Jack McGinn can give him the start, to make it a bit more expansive and open in attack. But I mean, yeah, I think you can use them and deploy them both, and depending on the matchup, I think.
Yeah, it should depend on the matchup. The same thing can be said with Olivier Mbaizo and Nathan Harriel. Honestly, Dave, I feel kind of crazy saying this. I kind of want Olivier to play more often. To be perfectly
Yeah,
frank, I think that when you have Bedoya sitting back, like Jim has alluded to recently, Nathan's great defensively. Yes, he has the ability to kind of send that long ball. He does have ability to cross, but Olivier is Jack McGlynn-ish in the sense that he can beat you one-on-one. He can make a play. He is offensively gifted in that manner. And the way the top three have been playing with Daniel Gazdag, Ua, and Carranza having Kai Wagner be on the left and Olivier offensively minded on the right is really dangerous. I mean, it's a very dangerous group of 5 players. And Bedoy's been playing great too. Can't forget Ali Bedoy's been playing phenomenal this year. So I kind of want to see more of Olivier. I do. I know people love Nathan. I think Olivier does have his mental lapses on defense, which is frightening considering the fact that if Jack McGlynn's in there too, you don't have as strong of a defensive output. But I mean, they've been scoring well, and that's what we've been wanting to see all year was them score 2 goals a game, right? Do you
yeah,
feel confident that they can score 2 goals a game now, right? You go into these matches expecting a second goal now. Olivier has been a contributor to that. I feel like
absolutely.
you can't argue against that. But when you go back to Jack and Leon, I saw a huge battle online. Basically, Leon Flock is too limited offensively. He can't contribute, and Jack has to be the starter. But at the same time, you have to think this team is based off the counterattack. This team is based off forcing turnovers and suffocating you on defense, and then attacking that way. Leon Flock does play that part extremely well,
Yeah,
and it allows players like Jose Martinez and Kai Wagner to be more aggressive, knowing that Leon is able to quickly get back on defense because he's much faster than Jack as well. So
yeah.
I I don't know. I mean, against DC United, who do you think we see in the lineup?
I think probably Leon Flack. I think again, it's another road game. I think you want to try and make sure you get out of there at least a point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's
I
true.
mean, no disrespect to Jack again. I mean, again, if Jim wants to shake things around, you might see something a bit different. But I think, again, it's just sort of game that Leon will probably come into because he just do the dirty stuff in the midfield as well that sort of goes undetected, putting in the side tackles, chasing,
Yeah,
hustling the ball down. You're chasing off the loose balls, and when possession is lost down, he's one of those guys that's first to the ball. He allows Kai Wagner to be Kai Wagner as well, and I think Jim Kern's alluded to that many times since he's come into the team.
yes,
That we've seen the best out of Kai Wagner when Leon Flack's on the pitch because Leon Flack can take up the defensive duties and give Kai Wagner more freedom to attack that left hand side and be more expansive in the way that he plays. So I think again, especially a game like this, you're going to need your best players going forward to be
yeah.
at their best. So I think putting Leon out there is probably the smarter choice.
And I mean, not to mention, okay, so when you go back to the supporter shield year, you had Anthony Fontana. I'm sorry, God, Anthony Fontana being a very reliable sub off the bench. You had the same thing with Ilsinho the year before when he just had a phenomenal year. He was a super sub in the league. Right now, before we entered the season, you and I had talked about this and saying who is going to be the super sub, who is going to be the guy that you can rely on to come to the game and change things up. Right now, Ua and Karan's up top are awesome. You bring in Burke, it's more of a gritty defender, but you know you're losing offensive ability when you put Corey Burke in there. So
Yeah,
who is the guy who can create? And the one person who has been literally instant, you know, uh, offense has been Jack McGlynn. So why not use him for 30, 25 minutes per match and allow him to be that super sub while Leon Flock does all the dirty work for the first 65 minutes? I mean, you can coexist with both of them. It's just a matter of how you use them properly because,
yeah,
to be honest with you, you can put Jack McGlynn out there for 65, 70 minutes, but then you can't bring Leon on for the last 20 minutes if you're trying to score a goal.
no,
He's more of a Warren Craval type player, if anything, in the back half of a game than he is Jack McGlynn. So I I hope against DC they bring Leon because you're right. You need to secure a point on the road, and you don't want to have any defensive miscues against DC, especially considering how big of a rivalry this really is.
yeah. I think as well. I mean, again, I think Jim's alluded to as well. They've become a bit more solid and more structured under Wayne Rooney since they've come in. I mean, you look at the sort of games. again, coming off the 7-0 loss and really sort of coming. They're trying to, again, they're still struggling a bit. They're very inconsistent with the form wise. They've lost the last two games, just 1-0.
Yeah,
Uh, Again, unlucky to lose in LA, but I think, yeah, this is sort of game Union can't really afford to lose. I mean, again, they've still got that 6 point gap over, 6 point gap over NYCFC and 5 point gap over Montreal. But the important thing for them now is to, sort of keep racking up the points because the job isn't done yet. I mean,
no,
listen, if they lose this weekend, and Montreal and NYCFC both end up winning their games, and then there's a chance the Union could end up being in third place
couple
by
weeks.
within the next couple of weeks. I don't know when their games in hands are. So again, I think you need to don't stray away from what's working just because of
No,
the odd game or two. It's worked well so far. But even again, I mean, having Leon playing in the six, and I know the Union have obviously signed a couple of players over the recent weeks as well. I don't know if any of them on the bench in midweek.
probably not. Not at
No,
least not this far in the season. So actually, I'm gonna look at the lineup real quick. So last time the Union played against DC United, Leon Flock was in the lineup to start that match. So I mean, they destroyed them the first time with Leon, so why not do it again?
yeah,
My biggest fear is the revenge aspect side of things. Is the fact that you beat them last year at home at the Union Stadium in the Lightning match that we had, and you just absolutely embarrassed them
yeah,
at home. I mean, you literally had a historic win against them.
yeah,
They're gonna be pissed off. They're gonna want to rough you up. They're gonna want to at least get a goal or so to make it interesting early on. You can't take them for granted. You can't because
no,
at the end of the day, you're still in a league that anybody can win any single week. We've seen it tons of times already this year. I mean, DC United does have wins. They have beaten opponents so far. But
absolutely,
to go back to the point about the standings, you have Montreal behind you. Thankfully, they drew them at home and they beat them away. So you have 4 points against them right there. And then against NYCFC, they've beaten them twice also.
yeah,
So you do have that in your back pocket, the fact that you've beaten these two teams below you. But you're right, Dave. It sucks to say that this match against the bottom feeder is a must win, but let's be honest, it's a must win. If you want to be
yeah,
a true contender in this league, you have to beat the opponents that you should
yeah,
beat, and this is a must win game.
exactly.
So, Dave, they win the game. Who's scoring? What's the final score?
Uh, I'll say 2-1. I think again, you look at
Oh,
the way that
that's tighter than I was hoping you'd say.
I think again, you look at the way that I mean, again, look at the way the way that Rooney has changed that team, probably making them a bit more defensively solid. I mean, I think they're going to be a tough opposition to break down. As you said, they're playing for pride. I mean, the
Yeah.
last time he played the Union, it couldn't have been good for them. I mean, it wasn't good for them. I mean, you look at the games that they had before Rooney took over. I think we should go through all the competitive games they played in. So from the 24th of April,
Uh huh.
I think they conceded less than 2 goals on 2 occasions up until the Union game. So
Jesus Christ.
almost a 3 month period, they conceded a goal or less in just 2 games. And
Right.
since Rooney's come in, they've obviously conceded only a goal. If you can see, well, they've looked better defensively again. Like the
Yeah.
last 3 games, they've kept a clean sheet. They've lost 1-0 a couple of times, but against again the good LAFC team and on the road to New England, they're going to be a tough. They're going to be. I'm not saying they're a great team, but they're a strong. They're going to be a strong. They're going to have a strong mindset of we're going to play the upset. We're going to play the underdog upset role. We're going to try and close them down. We're going to play for revenge and pride. So I think 2-1. That's why I sort of think it's going to be a closer game than we expect.
You know what? You mentioned the Rooney, and I forgot about that. So, if you guys remember, they actually had fired their coach after the Union game. Rooney took over afterwards. So, we have never seen this version of DC United yet. Granted, it's not going to be catastrophically different, but you're right. It's probably going to be more defensive minded, as you mentioned. The strategy is going to be a little different.
Yeah,
But when you're playing a team that literally has nothing to play for besides pride and revenge, that's a very dangerous opponent.
yeah,
And from a health standpoint, the the Union players are going to get smacked around. I mean, it's just is just going to be there, and you
Yeah,
had to be ready for that. You had to be ready to handle that kind of pressure. You had to be ready to handle that kind of environment and that kind of intensity. Because guess
yeah,
what? If they go down a goal early, the Union fall down in the 25th minute early, you know DC is just going to bunker down and try to crowd the box and make it impossible for the Union to score. And we
yeah,
saw it against FC Dallas. I think it was Jack in the press conference, Jack McGlynn, who said, you tried to make attempts at a goal in the second half, you just couldn't. They just hunkered down in the box, they parked the bus in a way, and they just basically kept them out of any sort of danger zone.
yeah,
And when you had Kai Wagner playing as poorly as he was, and you have Olivier really not creating a terrible amount of chances, you couldn't score. You just couldn't score at all. You had your chances and you blew them when they were there. So
yeah,
I'm more concerned about this match than I should be, and I think it's only because it's at DC United. If it was at home, I'd say we're
yeah,
going to clean the floor with them, but it's almost a bad thing that we beat them that bad because now they have this significant edge of intensity they might bring that they may not have brought if they only lost 1-0. It's like it was a close match kind of thing, but
yeah.
I'm gonna be more optimistic. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 1-0. I don't
Okay.
think they give up a goal. I think they're
I,
gonna
I
keep.
mean,
I don't. Yeah.
I was going to say, obviously, Jim did sort of reiterate in his press conference that he's going to sort of rotate things and make changes between
Oh,
the
that's
FC
right.
Dallas game and DC game as well. So, I mean, I presume Corey will come out. You might see Ali maybe come out, and that could open up the chance for Jack McGlynn to come in anyway. You might end up having the balance of
Shit.
McGlynn, and you might get Mbizo out there as well. That's probably it. I think he'll want to cover Dick Gazdag and Kranz in the front three, especially coming off a loss. I
Yeah.
think had the Union maybe won the game, you
Yeah.
may on Wednesday night you may have actually seen an Uar and Chris Donovan
You know what,
striking partnership.
Dave? Damn it, you're right. I forgot that he said that. You're right. So they might actually have some changes. And
Yeah,
we saw when
but
Bedoya had the suspension after he threw the ball against the Revolution, that McGlynn actually took his spot on the right side, not Quinn
yeah,
Sullivan. So
because
you're right.
obviously, yeah, I was gonna
They
say,
might there might be a Quinn on the right.
I think
Or
obviously Ali played.
Jack. Yeah.
Ali obviously played the full 90 minutes or the full game, but I think he will probably go with the strongest front three, which is obviously Gazdag, Uar, and
Yeah.
Carranza.
Yeah. For
Coming
sure.
off the loss, I think he'll want to rectify that and make sure this team comes out with the win. I mean, it's going to be a big game tomorrow. I mean, again, listen, the Union will be playing in the playoffs. It's just a matter of whether the East goes through Philadelphia, or do they have to then, do they end up having to get or do they end up having to, what's it called, having to play a first round matchup and don't get a bye. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
So yeah, I mean, luckily the Union have not lost back-to-back games all year.
Yeah,
So statistically speaking, they've bounced back, and we've talked about their battles with adversity before. We've talked about how they've always been able to get through these tough times and bounce back and had these comeback performances. And we saw that last year too, Dave. After the CONCACAF knockout game where we lost in Chester, they come back and they take care of NYCFC at home, which was a humongous game that they came back and won.
yeah,
We've seen this at Atlanta when they were down in the first half, getting their ass kicked, and they ended up smacking them in the CCL in the second half. We've
yeah.
seen this over the last 2 years. This team has a lot of fight, a lot of grit. I don't expect them to lay down tomorrow. I
No,
expect them to come out with intensity. I just am worried that the intensity is also going to be matched by a team like DC United against
all
the
right.
rival with a new coach. So now that you mentioned McGlynn's going to be in the lineup, I'm still going to say 1-0, but I have a bit more optimism because I actually kind of
Okay.
like Jack in this form that he's in right now because he is playing very well, which is exciting.
No, I agree. Because obviously, with the way that the player format works out, only the first seed gets the bye, doesn't they?
Yes,
So, I
yes.
mean, obviously, looking at the moment, presuming the Union do get the bye, going off sort of presuming that the top ranked teams will win, they'll play the winner of the Red Bulls and Columbus Crew. So, yeah, the Union playing Columbus in the playoffs.
That's going to be a tough game.
But yeah, first seed Philadelphia Union playing the Columbus Crew in the playoffs.
That's going to be a tough game because every time we play Columbus, it's tough. I
And
don't know who
especially,
I.
I mean,
Yeah,
getting the flashbacks as well to the support Shield year when the Union. Obviously, I mean, I don't think everyone. I think did it? No, they lost to the Revs, didn't they? Not the Crew. Sorry, the Crew actually won the playoffs that year. Sorry,
yeah.
and obviously the Union lost to the Revs. That's my bad. Sorry, but I mean, again, I mean, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, of course, they could end up playing the Reds, who are only a couple, only a couple of goals behind the Columbus Crew in the table. So I mean,
Yeah, and
again, this,
you have Charlotte knocking on the
yeah,
door too. Charlotte's been climbing up the stand. They're right there.
yeah,
I'm
Toronto as well.
Toronto as well. I don't want to play the Crew in the playoffs.
No,
I really don't want to play Cincinnati at all. I think Cincinnati could beat us.
uh,
I wouldn't mind playing Charlotte. I think we can handle Charlotte. I think we did very well against them the
yeah,
first time. I think we could take care of business.
yeah,
So I'm pushing for Charlotte. I know we had Dave Gussler on our show, months ago, from Charlotte FC. So I'm rooting for them, and then hopefully we kick their ass in the playoffs.
uh,
But
I mean, again, looking
yeah,
at the the bottom end of the table, anyone up from Atlanta and 13th could make the playoffs. Still,
yeah, yeah.
only
It's
what 4 points off the off Orlando City. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, again, you look at teams like Chicago. I mean, yeah, the Union thrashed them at the weekend. Everyone's like, oh, they're bottom feeders of the East. They're only 3 points off Orlando
come
in
on,
the seventh
Chicago.
seed.
Give me Chicago. I'll gladly
Yeah,
take Chicago again. I thought
I
they
mean,
were.
listen, Chicago. I would say Chicago could end up the fifth seed if they can string together 2, 3, 4 wins or 3, 4 positive results in a row. They can end up being the fifth seed for a
I
win at the moment.
I don't mind Chicago because of the way they played against Shaqiri in that last match. They basically just they controlled him, and everybody plays off of him anyway. So it's like
Yeah,
they just said, "Hey, don't let him beat you," and that's basically what happened. They
very
did well.
similar. Very similar to the way in which they dealt with Carlos Vela with that AFC. I mean, obviously,
And the same way they've done well with a lot of superstars, they are
yeah,
able to kind of keep these guys in check a bit, which has been very nice to see. But go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's what I was. I mean, and of course, I mean, obviously, LAFC didn't have either Chiellini or Bale play for them this week in the
Wait,
midweek
Dave,
game. I'm not sure why.
do you see the comment from Danny? Isn't it sad that we fear anyone with the best defense in the league? But I agree. You know why we agree with this, Danny? Because the Union have not had historically good performances when it
Yeah,
matters most. So I think we're
yeah.
scarred by it. As Philly fans, we're scarred by it.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think again, I've been going into last year's playoffs. I think a lot of the Union weren't playing great going into that playoff period. I think a lot of us probably thought did somewhat fear the worst of it. That they
Yeah.
were going to struggle to. I mean, again, weren't convincing in the playoffs last year, but that was probably the one year that I mean, going off the way the Union's history has gone, it wouldn't surprise you if they'd have gone all the way and won it, considering they were somewhat convincing throughout the year. But then to then take the previous year where they were so dominant and then to just throw an absolute dud in the first in their first game against the Revs, where they should have, I think, after beating them like 5, 6 times in the same year, it was just ridiculous. But I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I think Danny makes a great point that again, it's sad that we do fear other teams, but I think that's the nature of the MLS. Is that
Yeah.
it's not like the Premier League in England, where if you look at the fixtures, you see Liverpool are playing. I think Liverpool are playing Nottingham Forest and Man City are playing Bournemouth. You just look at those two and go, okay, Liverpool and Man City have won. We'll look at the rest of the fixture list.
Right.
In the MLS, anyone can truly beat anybody, and that's all the beauty of this league.
Yeah.
But even if the quality is not up to standard of the other leagues in the world, the unpredictability and the excitement of the league is what makes it so exciting.
I I completely agree. And I think that is one reason why, in particular, you have to have home field advantage. I know people get kind of weary about the first round bye, and I get that you want to kind of go with momentum, but we cannot be beaten at Super Park. I feel very confident playing at Super Park,
Yeah,
100%.
no, it's true.
And if it has to run through Chester, then may God bless all the other teams that have to come through here, because there's just a different energy from this team. They have a different spirit to them. You can see it, the way their passes, their flair, the accuracy, everything's different in front of the Philly fans.
I
It's
agree.
unbelievable. I mean, I think Jim, he mentioned years ago he wanted to build a fortress at Super Park, and he's done that. He's done that in a lot of times it's through defense. Let's be
Yeah,
honest. You suffocate these teams, and you put out these counter-attacking goals, and it's just beautiful to watch. And um, I'm excited. But first, we have this match tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Dave, you are on the call tomorrow night, right?
yeah, I got to
You're
worry.
on the call tomorrow night. Awesome. So follow him, Dave GFC Miller, on wait this right here on Twitter, Dave GFC Miller. You can follow me, Embarrera1323. I won't be covering the
Yeah,
match. Might be the press conference. We'll see.
yeah,
So Dave, you said 2-1. I said 1-0. They play against DC United, the bottom feeders. Hopefully, they turn it around. Any last thoughts, there, Dave? Any goal scoring prediction? And we'll close out the night.
I will say my goal scorers. I will go Carranza. Go Carranza Bryce.
Oh, Carranza brace. Oh, he did look pretty aggressive against FC Dallas. So I think I can agree with a Carranza goal. I'll go with one goal from Carranza. And you know what? I think Jack McGlynn gets another one tomorrow. I think he
Yeah,
starts, and I think he gets a goal. He's been in good form. He's been getting close. I think he gets a goal tomorrow and makes more of a controversy on Twitter because everybody wants him to start over Leon Flock.
yeah,
So, anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. Danny, Moyo, Adam, all you people. Appreciate it. Laura, I believe. Shout out to
awesome.
everybody. And
Cheers,
have a great
guys.
night. Cheers. Dude.
Okay, you do.